Hello and welcome to the Smells Like Infinite Sadness podcast. I'm your host, Michael Taylor. For those of you who don't know, I run the website, smellslikeinfinitesadness.com. It's a blog covering the best alternative rock from the 80s and 90s up to present day. I'm a proud middle-aged Gen Xer who is still obsessed with the music of his youth and loves to talk about it. And today I'll be talking to Robin Guthrie, perhaps best known as the former guitarist and songwriter for influential dream pop group the Cocteau Twins. In addition to his work with that group, he's had many production credits and has also worked on collaborative projects with artists including John Foxx and the late Harold Budd, and has also had an equally prolific solo career. And speaking of prolific solo careers, he's back with two new releases. He has an EP entitled Mockingbird Love and a full-length album entitled Pearldiving. Today's episode, Guthrie discusses his new releases and the creative process behind them, why he's been away for so long, memories of working with the late Harold Budd, the legacy of the Cocteau Twins, future projects, and much more. So take a listen and be sure to hang around afterwards. I'll be playing a track off the new album. First off, I noticed you released your new EP, Mockingbird Love, and you've got a full-length Pearldiving, which is your first full-length album in 9 years. And I guess I was just wondering what kind of inspired you to put out so much material at once after being away for so long. What was the impetus for that?
I don't know. Maybe, it's just being away for so long. Perhaps that's perhaps all there is to it. But I certainly got a shock last year when Harold passed. Just after we got that record out, and I spent the first couple of months this year just moping around, feeling really kind of a bit. I don't know. Not aimless, but just like. The reason I stopped putting a lot of music out is, well, first of all, I just burnt myself out when I made Fortune. That was a really emotional and eventful record to make. It just really sucked the life out of me. And for me at that point, it kind of also seemed to attract very little in the way of an audience, I think perhaps I just got a little bit, I just put that a little bit too much into it. And emotionally, it was like I didn't get anything back, and I just thought, well, you know what? A wee bit. It was like I needed to go and play shows, so I got distracted with going to play shows. Recorded some more stuff with Harold after that. Did some more shows with Harold, and it just, kept recording music and doing odd little things, producing a lot of things, which is quite time consuming as well. And then I got to a place where I just started to move away and started to spend a lot more time doing photography. And basically, I spent about 2 years just. I did some music, but I was just, just doing old school photography. My father-in-law recently retired. He was a photographer all his life. He had these cameras, with the big ones you put your head in.
Oh, yeah.
Big, large format stuff. And I just wanted to know how to do that. And here's an old guy that was going to show me. And it was really, really exciting. And an ideal outlet for my sort of creativity, and that's something that's absolutely essential for me. Is to have a flow, is to have an output. I absolutely thrive on, going into the studio with nothing and coming out with something. I kind of need to. That's it. I just need to do that. So, it's a hygiene thing, really. Mental hygiene. It's just good for me to do that. So I focused a little bit away from music and started to do sort of visual things. And unsurprisingly, it was unsurprising to me because I didn't know what I was doing in the same way I don't know what I'm doing really with music either. It's quite an intuitive thing, and I like the way that my pictures looked, and it was like. They didn't look like other people's. They just looked a bit like the way my music sounds, I think. I was just pleased. But then I sort of just, you always come back to what you do as well. I mean, I couldn't really justify having a recording studio. And so all through this period I've been making music, but none of the things that I did sort of fell into a project per se. It's like, I've got 3 songs, I could make an EP. Everything was sort of more isolated and, doing a lot of traveling, a lot of recording elsewhere. Just, whether that's sitting in a hotel room with a guitar and a laptop somewhere exotic, or whether it's just on a train or whatever, just getting the outside into my sort of system, and that's the way that I can make music. It's like I don't, have that thing where I go and hang out with the guys and we do a jam and all that sort of thing. There's so many different ways that people that I know make music, and it's just so alien to me, completely alien to me. I just do my thing, and I came back to it, and I made Mockingbird Love earlier this year. The early part of the year, as I tried to say before, I just sort of floated about and thought, right, I just think I really need to get some music out again. That's missing. And I sort of got rid of my studio. I just emptied out, sort of changed a lot of equipment. I rebuilt it, put things in different places. I used different guitars, different effects, different, everything, and made music that sounds remarkably like I didn't change anything at all. but ain't that the way, It's like I can make my music on anything. That's not the equipment that counts, really. It's what goes into it, I guess. So.
Well, do you remember what the first song was that kind of kicked everything off? Once you kind of had your new process in place, how that started?
Yeah. I just made the Mockingbird Love just pretty much straight off. And then made the album pretty much straight off. But then during those sort of the making of the album, I just started to make more EPs. I started to go down little avenues that I wanted to explore in a different way. And going back to Cocteau Twins, I loved that, the way that we made EPs, because it was like it wasn't committing to make an album, but it was like, let's try this stuff, or let's do an EP, let's just do 4 tracks or 3 tracks. So just going back to that. The other thing that happened was I got really, really, really nonplussed with the traditional music business. I think you could say just the way that, even if you're on a little indie label, it's still, I make some music and I've got to wait like 4 months or 6 months for it to come out. Why? So I kind of threw myself into Bandcamp a little bit and thought, I can actually make things happen an awful lot quicker. I've got a huge backlog of unreleased material because, things traditionally have been, I don't know, more people involved, longer times, longer run-ups, more people needing to make money out of it, more, more distributors, more this, more that, more mouths to feed. And essentially it gets away from the fact that I can do this stuff and I can just get stuff directly to, well, not everybody, but a whole bunch of people that are interested, because it sort of focuses where people look a little bit. It's a sort of microsystem of its own, but there's and it's easy to forget there's the rest of the music world out there as well. But it sort of works for me in as much as I can put things there fairly directly and get feedback from people that actually like it and they're not ambivalent about it. Like, what happens when you're, in your 50s and you sort of make music and people go, oh yeah, but I like that stuff you did when you was like 19. So can't tell you how old that gets. But, I should be kind of grateful, but sometimes I'm not, because it's like, how old are you?
Oh, I'm 50. Just turned 50 a few months ago.
So. You're 50, right? So I'll bet when you were 15, you did some things that made you a bit of a dick. It's entirely possible, right? Mm-hmm. Now imagine that every time you switch your computer on, there's a picture of you when you were 15. And it's like here's Michael defined by what he did when he was, an adolescent. Yeah. That's your life. It's over. It's just defined by that. Mm-hmm. That's a wee bit to carry, and I'm not the only person that's like that. There must be an awful lot of people. I mean, it's strange that I don't know if this was a thing that happened in the past, in the 50s and 60s and '70s and things. Yeah, the fact that you've still got your Rolling Stones and things like that. Do you know what I mean? It's just like there's a period where people have been making what we'll call rock music, and all those guys are getting old now. You know, that never, to the best of my knowledge, that didn't really happen before. Or maybe I'm just a bit blind, but, you know, so there's more people out there making music, and it's, you know, I kind of never decided really to make music for my life. That was just I wanted to make a record. That was the teenage thing that happened there. So you end up a few years later going, what just happened there? How come I'm still doing this? Doing the same things I did, yeah. But, you know, it's great. I used to say I got the best job in the world. Then for a long time, I didn't have the best job in the world. At the moment, I feel like I've got the best job in the world because my expectations are fairly low.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, really. There's nobody else here blowing smoke up my ass telling me I'm fucking brilliant like what I had in all the years of being a teenager on a record label with a following. You know, it's just pretty down to earth. I like it. It's kind of, don't know, a wee bit more grown up.
So you kind of prefer the immediacy now of being able to put stuff out online, not having to mess with the record company as like a middleman. Is that something that you like better?
I do like it because it's quite new. I mean, I know people have been doing this for a while, but, you know, a lot of my, experience has been, from an industry that no longer exists. You know, the way that the music industry was, in the 80s or whatever, so far away from now. And, the fact that I've got a choice whether I make my music on vinyl or not,
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you used to have a choice, that was the only thing you could do, So, yeah, it's, I don't know. I mean, we just all evolve and we just gather information and we move forward in our lives, and hopefully we try to be a little bit more, I don't know, evolved is a good word, I don't keep my head in the past at all. So I tip my hat to it from time to time and go, thank goodness I was in Cocteau Twins and not one of those other groups. And you can name a million groups from the 80s that may be difficult to go back and look at with any sort of sense of pride. But yeah, I've got a sense of pride about that.
Well, speaking about that, when you're working on your solo work versus working with the Cocteau Twins or even with the Herald, do you like that better, or is it just different? What do you think? What are the kind of pros and cons of both?
I don't differentiate at all. But basically, essentially, my process, the way that I make music now has been the same way effectively, not since I started, because I wasn't able to record immediately. But when Head Over Heels came, which was the second album, and that was the first time that I put myself in this seat here. I'm in my studio, by the way. That's why I said this seat. And just take charge of everything. And that's really, there's a direct lineage from there to here. I haven't really changed what I do. I get in the studio, I get inspired, I make music, and I mix it. When I work with other people, we pretty much work in the same way. I mean, Harold and I, we never used to write music together. We would go to the studio together and do what I do, and, it was great because his whole discipline, his whole area of music and expertise was, so radically different to mine. He had manuscript paper with notes written down and stuff like that. I was just so intimidated and really do that. But, I guess I brought technology and I brought something different as well. We didn't need to stand on each other's toes to do that. We just had a right old laugh in the studio, really. And we both had a deep sense of, beauty. We're both quite, we've a lot in common, but very different as well. And, he was much older as well, and I didn't really, I lost my dad when I was quite young, so didn't really ever have many older people in my life, so that was a kind of bonus as well.
And what do you think you learned from Harold as far as your songwriting is concerned? How do you think that he impacted you?
You know, I don't know how to say that without seeming sort of frivolous, but I could say, well, nothing really, because our process is so different. You know, his music that he makes is like, you know, he do a big drony note, and then 30 seconds later, he hit two notes on the piano, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Whereas I just can't not do something for that long.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just like, no, I've got to put more stuff in. Just one more harmony. Okay, just one more harmony. Maybe just one more. You know, that kind of thing. So, no, like I say, I mean, we influence each other on a personal level, probably, because we just used to, you know, that's part of the fun of making a record together is that we got on well. So I miss him. But, you know, I don't really think that I compromised what I do in the studio to work with Harold. No, not at all. I just slotted in, you know. Certainly working with other people, working with Mark Gardner from Ride. So that was more like a writing songs sort of thing. But again, in the studio, or Mark would say, I've got some chords or something like that. Different process. I've spent more time in the studio producing people than I do collaborating with them. And for me, that's I think ultimately at the end, I don't feel, when I've produced people, I don't feel like I need to compromise at all, because, but when I've perhaps, you know, the record that I did with Mark, for instance, is a record that neither of us would have made on our own, you know, musically. Because it was like kind of quite devoid of, you know, kind of things that were synonymous with, you know, Ride or what I do. It was quite devoid of that, you know. He had his acoustic and, you know, had some bloody congas, you know. It's like, what? You know, what's going on here? But that's good as well, you know, just to try something like that.
Is that album coming out soon that you both did together, or has it already been released? Or
It came out in 2015.
Oh, I need to go back and discover that then.
Well, yeah. If you like, I mean, you know, it's one of those things. It's different again. So,
well, do you think there's a difference when you're writing an instrumental versus something with vocals? Going back to kind of delving back in that area again, do you approach songwriting differently when you're doing a song with no vocals, or is it just the?
No. You know, the interesting thing is with Cocteau Twins, I made instrumentals, and then when the piece of music was finished, Elizabeth would get her vocals together and sing on it. But that's the way that pretty much from A to Z, that's how we worked. So making instrumentals is like falling off a log for me. Interestingly, though, I mean, once Elizabeth would come up with something, and it really perhaps turn the whole song around and make it into something that it perhaps wasn't going that way, I would take some of the things that I've done out to make space for the vocals and stuff like that. So it's not like a cut and dried, it's an instrumental with vocals on top. I think the sort of craft within that is knowing to take things out as well, you know, I guess. But it's certainly not a, you know, I would always want to be really happy with a piece of music that I'd done before passing it on to anybody. So, yeah, write an instrumental. Instrumentals has got to, you know, I said this in another podcast, so I hope I don't get sued for saying the same thing twice. I'm saying somebody else's thing, but it's like the human voice, right? I have loads of time to think about this. I had 40 years to think about this. Human voice is like so instantly recognizable. You know, it's emotions embodied in like sound, you know, and very, very, very unique, you know, and that's the challenge that I have when I make instrumental music, because I need to give it my voice. My voice is, you know, something that can be fairly easily imitated if you have like a couple of modern pedals or something like that, you know. Whereas you can't really do that with a human voice. You know, someone, oh, you're trying to sound like that person, but you don't really sound like that person because it's so unique. And I just really need to keep myself I need an expressive voice in order to convey emotions within instrumental music, to take, to get it out, and also to make it not boring, to make it sort of, there's going to be something in there that will take you the same place a human voice could, on a, base level, a sort of mid-brain, back of the head sort of animal part level. That's where the emotion is coming. And and it's definitely not cerebral. It's definitely not like overthought. It's really about how certain notes and how certain schemes and things make you feel, or how I can get how I feel into the notes and the sounds in a very expressive way.
Well, I was going to say that kind of leads me to my next question, which I'm listening to both the new releases, which I've enjoyed very much. I really, really like what I've heard. But whether it's like Copper or My Curtisan off the EP, or Eye of Your Ocean Air off Pearldiving, there's such a signature sound to what you do. It's very emotive, even instrumental. I feel that, but you have a way of kind of tapping into that, but you still sound contemporary. And can you tell me how you kind of first developed your unique guitar style and how it's changed over the years, how you've modified it, or has it pretty much stayed the same, or how does that evolve, I guess, from when you began?
Well, I think you just answered yourself. You answered yourself. It evolves. I don't consciously, I do so many things with music that are without thinking about it. I do make changes. When I was speaking to you earlier, I said, change my studio, change the guitars I use, change the tunings, use different instruments, different types of guitars. But, the place that it gets to is what I'm trying to, it's not a product of just a couple of boxes and a couple of pedals and stuff like that, and then anything. But for me, it's like once you get the sound in the right area, then you're playing the sound. You're not playing, it's like, computer mouse is what we use to input data into a computer. I use a guitar as a sort of input device almost to get the notes in to the things that will generate the big sound and stuff, So I'm interested in not really playing the guitar at that point. I'm interested in playing the sound that I'm hearing coming back off the speakers.
Mm-hmm. So you're kind of, it's not just about playing it. I mean, I almost feel like in some ways the guitar stuff you do almost doesn't sound like a guitar at times. It sounds so alien and different. Was that kind of a conscious approach, or that's just how it comes out?
Like I said, there's not very many conscious approaches. Alien and different. I don't know about that because it's not alien and different to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that I ever. Everything finds its place. I'm not sure that I actually consciously go out and say, "Oh, right, I want a different sound." I have an idea of the sound that I want in my head, or how this certain sound will go together to create a third sort of thing, which was a big sort of, it's not a trick, but it's like the Cocteau Twins. If you strip down what I'm playing, you can probably find you can play most of it with like one finger or two fingers. It's just, it's really not complex. What I do is not complex, but it's I don't know, it just all kind of goes together. I don't know, it's difficult to explain on an audio podcast because I'm waving my fingers about here, trying to guess how it goes together, but it sort of does.
Well, I think also there's a very cinematic quality to what you do. And you mentioned you've been doing photography. And I wondered, I mean, are you inspired by images or film when you do music? Does that ever, or do you almost...
I'm only inspired. Tell you what, music doesn't inspire me in the slightest, right? What I bring into the studio is my experience with it. If I'm traveling, I bring in travelogues in my head, places I've been, or actually I just go places and work there, whether it's like in the middle of the desert or, in a caravan, by the ocean. I can do something that helps. I read like a motherfucker. That's my chosen way to unwind and to kind of relax. I'm a big reader, so I kind of get a lot of inspiration from what I read. And, music is, I hear music in my life, but I don't actively go out and chase all the hot new bands to find out who's cool and who's not. And, that would just be, what's that going to do for my music, That's not going to bring anything into it. I've never fed my music with other music. That's sort of like a weird sort of cannibalism, isn't it? It's, I don't, so it's really about experience. And images are very, very strong. So this wall here, I just sort of tidied it up, but it was looking like a 14-year-old girl's bedroom because it was just pasted with loads of pictures of things that I've seen or done or interesting. It's kind of like an inspirational thing, and things like that. But you mentioned motion pictures. When I'm working on a motion picture, that is, I'm already sort of completely distracted from, myself and my instrument because I'm watching the picture. My job within that is to, help tell a story. I don't have a job when I'm making my own music. It's just to sort of just do whatever comes to mind and pleases me, answerable to nobody. So, doing movie things is really good because I get to use my skills, but in a different way. Yay, that's exciting. It is, it's really good. I've hardly done any, but I've enjoyed what I've done. That's been really cool. And just being part of something as well is nice, because, I do have a tendency to overpower things when I take, control of a studio. I do dominate it. So having that, at the end of the day, it's part of a movie. It's it's a good taming sort of thing for me not to take things too far. It's good. Every now and again. I don't know if I could do it all the time, but I think sonically my sounds and my music could be great in a lot more movies. Actually,
yeah.
Very judgmental when I watch movies. I'm like, I wouldn't have done that. No, I wouldn't have done that. No.
Well, have you given any thought on any live performances for this? Or, I know that right now it's kind of tricky with touring with COVID, of course, but have you given any thought to doing that? Or
if there's any positive thing come out of COVID, it's given me a really good excuse not to go anywhere near a stage. And frankly, I'm okay with that. Never, ever, ever in my life been a comfortable performer. And of late, again, around going back to the album Fortune, made that album. I told you it was like a really draining, emotional album where it was really complex. It's probably the most complex record I ever made in terms of if you peel away the layers of each song, there's so many other layers underneath there. It's like, shit, there's a lot going on there. Couldn't play it live at all. Tried, failed miserably. It's really cool. So then I'm doing shows where, the majority of the set is sort of 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. And I'm like, I don't want to be doing that. And then when I do shows with Harold and I never, ever used to play the things that we played on records. We just used to improvise our shows. Really, there'd be, it was absolutely terrifying. It was fine for him because he only played 4 notes, but I was filling in a lot of space. No, it's just like, I'll miss that, but it was absolutely terrifying. I think he was probably more comfortable with the performance than me, but he hated rehearsing and practicing and stuff. So we'd just write down a few notes. It's like, B flat. I'm like, what? B flat. Google B flat. Okay, I know that one. Yeah. It's this kind of thing. It was sort of odd. That's kind of how it worked. But that was good. I missed that, but I couldn't see myself just improvising things on my own. I've done that before, but it's just what's the word? Terrifying. Yeah, absolutely. It's yeah. So no, I don't really see that for the moment. But I don't know what's coming next year. I'm just a bit psyched at the moment about finding a sort of way to put out music and get it out to people and not having it create a big log jam in my head, because I've got sort of things that are not just hanging around and not coming out. So.
Well, speaking of that, are you planning anything else in the works now? Or you just kind of give it some time for these albums to be digested, or have you given any thought to other projects or anything?
Yeah, I've got another EP coming out on December the 3rd and another one coming out on January the 4th. I've got some things in manufacture for the first quarter of next year as well. So, yes. No, it's I kind of there was a period early in our Cocteau Twins days when we just put out three records a year. Like EPs or whatever, singles, album. And it was like quite a regular thing. And I just thought in the last few years, people seem to be, making a lot less things. There's more people making less things. And sometimes with some artists, you've got to wait 3 or 4 years between a record, And I just thought, this is our job. We should just get on with it and do it, This I can do this. This is good. I don't need to wait around for anything,
Well, I know you mentioned that you don't really look in the past very much, and you also don't really pay attention to a lot of current artists. But I did want to say I know that I hear so many contemporary bands that I think are definitely influenced by your sound. And you even had Miley Cyrus doing a Heaven in Las Vegas recently. I was wondering what your thoughts are on that and just your influence. How do you feel about your legacy as far as that's concerned?
I think the Miley Cyrus thing was quite interesting because I had no idea who she is at all. So that was a bit of a surprise, but why not? It's like it can only be there's people out there doing cover versions of songs, and I think that Cocteau Twins are a particularly difficult band to make a cover version of, unless you take the song and completely make it your own. But if you try to go anywhere near sounding like Elizabeth or sounding like the way I made the music, then it doesn't. I think that's a bit difficult for people. But I have heard some people just, perhaps making acoustic versions or just doing things and, making it their own. And that's a little flattering, isn't it? It's kind of cool. I don't listen to it. But I mean, why not? And you know what? It's not anything that feels out of the ordinary. It's like I've been doing this for quite a long time, and every year that passes, there's more and more people coming and making music. And if they're anything like me when I was younger, you listen to things by people that were already doing it. So it doesn't really. It seems like a natural scheme of things to be, perhaps influential, but just by the fact that you're still doing it, perhaps, or the fact that it was a wee bit away from its time when it first happened, So I don't really take credit for that, if you know what I mean. It seems to be the way of things. But, I've met an awful lot of people in bands and, predominantly the ones that are really, really much younger than me that are a bit sort of impressed and sort of, it's flattering. It's nice. It's good. I mean, what can I say? I mean, I hear things on I was going to say on the radio, but who listens to the radio now? You know what I mean? I hear things on the TV, like commercials, and I'm like, what? That's no. Oh no, it's not me. It's, it could be, maybe. So yeah, I mean, I get that. But technology as well has allowed an awful lot more people to make. It's made music really accessible to the masses, making music, because it used to be quite an elitist thing. I mean, in the olden days, first of all, you had to learn an instrument.
Yeah.
Then you had to try to get signed to a label, because who could afford to go in a studio? Making music has become completely democratized. Anybody can do it. You got a cell phone or a pad or a computer, you can do it now. Same with photography. Everyone's a photographer. Nobody goes to photo school for 7 years anymore. I was speaking with my father-in-law about that. I'm like, how come, every time I make a print, it's like, it's okay. And you come into the dark room and you just wave your fingers by, you do a couple of things, and it just comes out perfect. And he's going, well, 50 years doing the job and 7 years at photo school. I'm like, okay. Yeah, I get that.
It makes sense.
yeah. But, it's a wee bit away from the Instagram filter. But, so these things are, and what our people like me have to remember all the time is there's no laurels to sit on, because every day there's new, young, talented people coming out and doing things. Whether the genres of music change or evolve, that's a different question. But certainly people have their own voice coming. I mean, how many really successful, well-known, chart, singers are there now that are effectively singing, the type of songs and production that have been around since the 50s and 60s. Mm-hmm. The thing that they bring to it is their individual voice. It's not going to be the same as somebody else's voice. But as far as the genre busting goes, it doesn't bust anything. A lot of things are really fairly sort of static in that way. It seems to me.
Well, I think that covers all my questions. I guess before we go, is there anything else you want to add about your new releases or anything else you want to promote in the future, or any final thoughts you had about that?
I don't think so. I don't know. I'm not looking forward to final thoughts, that's for sure. I don't really have it's a bit of a novelty even doing promotion, because, I just wanted to try it. I've not really come from a world where we do podcasts and things. Mm-hmm. Never out of that world. Having said that, I listen to loads of them. I listen. I listen to an awful lot of spoken word and stuff like that. So it kind of makes sense. It's just I've never been part of that. I was kind of like, I was thinking, isn't it a journalist? Isn't that their job to just write everything down and let people read it? And then I think, oh, wait a minute. Young people don't really read things anymore. They watch things. That's a bit sweeping. Okay, I should take that back. But, if you do a big long thing, and because there's so many musicians and artists out there, as a journalist, you've got far more things to write about. And who's got time to write all that? So let's just do a podcast.
Well, I always like to close my episodes on a song. So, is there any song from these releases you think would be fitting to end the show on with?
I don't really have any favorites, because I kind of we didn't really talk about this, but when I construct a record, it's the running order is really, 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 really critical for me, because I see them as just being like, for instance, Mockingbird Love. It is 4 titles, but for me it's 1 EP. It's 13 minutes, and it just goes exactly from where it's meant to go to where it's meant to go. And that I actually sort of lose sleep over getting the sequencing right, because it's a really, really important part of making an album. And that's been, again, going back to Cocteau's days. Except it's different now, because in those days you had to do it for vinyl. So you had the tracks, the last track on the first side would be the one that made you want to put on the second side, that kind of thing. But I couldn't pick one. I mean, if you had 30 minutes to spare, you could play all of Mockingbird Love. But I think Ocean Air could be nice out of
I love that one.
Album. It's quite a balmy little, country-ish vibe to that. Bit of lap steel in there and stuff. Yeah.
I'll definitely put that one on there. But I wanted to add to, I think that what you mentioned is really a lost art, because we live in the Spotify era when it's very singles driven, but really the way that an album segues from song to song, the pacing is I think a very lost art. So I think it's great that you're still concerned about that, because I think the flow.
I have to say that when I make an album per se, and I know this goes against popular fashion at the moment, but I don't make it for vinyl. I make it for CD, because CD is, like you said, you can disembody the songs by having them one at a time on Spotify or making a playlist or whatever. CD is really the only way that you can have the tracks running in the order that I would like them to be running in.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, maybe it's not as sexy as old records or something like that, but it sounds better. So that's just,
yeah.
And who wants records are dear as well, albums. Expensive. So no, I mean, I would stick with that for the moment till something better comes along. But I don't really mix for vinyl. When there's an art to actually making something sound good on vinyl, and I break quite a few of the cardinal rules for making something good on vinyl. It's part of my process to make it sound good on headphones or on a hi-fi.
Mm-hmm.
Really messing with the stereo and the phase and all the things which are really bad for vinyl. So if I was to consider doing some vinyl, I'd probably remix things specifically for it if I went that way. I mean, I don't know anybody that listens to records anymore. People put records on and then they talk all the way through them. Because when I was growing up, we used to so one of the guys would get the latest Joy Division or something, would put the single on, and 5 guys would sit around listening to it and listen to the A side, and then we'd go, "Oh, that's pretty good, isn't it?" So we listen to the other side, we'd turn it over, and we'd all just sit and listen to it. And who listens to music like that anymore? They don't, So yeah, that's.
Yeah.
I mean, as individuals, we do because we have headphones, but it's not really a communal thing, is it? Unless it's put some background music on, and everyone can sit and talk and stuff like that. But people don't actually gather together. I guess people gather together and do other things, but not records anymore.
I wonder why that changed. I guess the internet is just given so many other distractions that it's hard to focus on just one thing these days.
We didn't have cell phones, we didn't have internet, we didn't have video games, all that stuff, it was, it's not so long ago,
Yeah. I remember those listening parties and just kind of giving a whole afternoon listening to an album and with no other distractions. And that's a very rare thing now.
I think it is. We just live in a different world. Who's got the time to do that? But, the saving grace is headphones. I think the fact that headphones have taken, can really enhance at least you can get into an album, but you're probably going to do it on headphones because there's too many distractions otherwise. With instrumental music, you can do anything. You can write books. You can do, all sorts of things without being distracted by the text,
Mm-hmm.
Good thing can be background music, can be foreground music. Yeah. Or I can't sing, so I mean that would be I don't think I could actually ever express myself with my voice or writing something to sing. That's just out of my capacity completely. So I'll just do this.
Well, I think your new releases are a testament to the fact that you don't have to have vocals. I mean, it has such a singular. Your voice is definitely there within the guitar notes. So I really enjoy listening to them. I've listened to them pretty much off and on the whole past week. So I really have enjoyed it.
I'm happy to do this as well. I don't really sort of struggle thinking, if only I had to sing it would be better. My music is complete in its own right. That's, if I was working with a singer, my music would not be as complex as it is. It wouldn't be so multi-level, and it wouldn't be the kind of, you wouldn't suddenly hear something the fifth time you listen to it that you'd never heard before, because I wouldn't have the space to put all these little, things in there, Easter eggs and stuff,
It's very, very cool. I love it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Rob. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks a lot for your time. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. A very big thanks to Robin Guthrie for taking the time out today for this interview. It was a real pleasure getting to talk to him. You can purchase his new EP and album via his website at robinguthrie.bandcamp.com. The EP again is called Mockingbird Love, and the full length is called Pearldiving. And as promised, we're going to leave you with a track off the new album. It is called Ocean Air. It's a really lovely tune. I think you guys are going to dig it. And I really highly recommend getting both these releases. I really enjoy listening to them. They're very calming and beautiful and all you would expect from Robin. So definitely give them your full attention. But yes, we'll be closing out with Ocean Air, so take a listen. And until next time, you stay safe and stay sane.